Hello and welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. We still don't have a appropriate or better tagline, but anyways, my name's Daniel and I'm joined by Hope.
Hey guys.
We're kind of, by the way, this is our new sound equipment. Hopefully it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like crap.
We're using them out on the couch, much to Daniel's chagrin, just because I didn't feel like sitting at the table this evening to do this, because we're actually recording this one a little early because I'm going out of town. So, I mean, who knows? Everything we talk about might end up, not being relevant.
Yeah, it's
The way
it's
things
February
go.
19th right now as we're filming
Yes.
this, and I think
Recording,
it won't
not
actually come on until the 28th, so we're about 9 days ahead
But
of ourselves here.
I would be remiss if I don't start off with some news. So our last podcast where we confirmed that Don Cheadle is in fact not in Mean Girls. That actor is Tim Meadows. My bad, Tim Meadows. My apologies. Even from this profile pic, I took this screenshot because there's some news about Mean Girls that came out. I feel like this profile pic. Look at this, Daniel. Don't you see how I could get them confused?
I can see how you
They have a
can get
similar
confused.
profile picture. But anyway, right after, we broke the news that Don Cheadle is not in Mean Girls, it was announced that Tina Fey and Tim Meadows, so not Don Cheadle, will reprise their Mean Girls characters in the upcoming musical movie adaptation of the beloved 2004 comedy. To which case, I'm like, oh my goodness, Mean Girls came out in 2004.
They're doing a musical.
Yeah, they've
Mean
already been
Girls?
doing like a musical and stuff. But
Oh.
now they're going to bring that to the big screen. But like, can we talk about that Mean Girls is that old? Like,
Yeah,
are you
we're old,
serious?
man. I don't know what else
So
to tell you.
anyway, I feel like with the whole, like this podcast, we talk about things and then suddenly like the future happens. And once again, like the day our Ted Lasso, when we talked about how we were looking forward to that comes out, like the day our podcast comes out, suddenly they're like, okay, we're getting Ted Lasso, March 15th.
Yep.
And they dropped a trailer coincidentally. And then, we randomly talk about Mean Girls, and there is some Mean Girls news. So I thought we could start off with that.
We're prophets.
Yes. So on that note, what have we been watching lately before I leave for my trip?
Special Forces, I think, is the main thing
Yes.
we've been watching together. And at this time of recording, it's got one episode left.
Yeah, so which means by the time this drops, the finale would have aired. So this would be technically spoiler free.
Yeah.
By the time you listen to this, if you haven't watched yet, who would you say on that show? So basically, what Special Forces did was they took a bunch of different random like celebrities, athletes, reality TV stars, and they basically are putting them through like kind of like a modified version of special operations training. So some of the
Selection, they call it. So
some of the
weeding
key
people-
cast have been like Nastia Liukin, who was the Olympic gold medalist gymnast from Beijing in 2008. They have another Olympian on there, Gus Kensworthy. I think he was a silver medalist skier. Carly Lloyd, who I believe she is also a gold medalist from the U.S. soccer,
they had a lot of
soccer
gold
team.
medal Olympians in there.
Let's see, we've got Dwight Howard. He has a gold medal, right?
Yes.
From basketball. Then I'm going to butcher his name. The Patriots fans are going to come for me. Is it Danny
Amendola.
Amendola? I didn't know who he was before, but he's pretty cute. So I like him now. He's scrappy. We've got Kenya Moore. I know she's a Real Housewives. I know her more from Dancing with the Stars, which is another reality show. We've got Hannah Brown, who was the Bachelorette, and then she was also on Dancing with the Stars. Nastia Liukin was on Dancing with the Stars. Mel B, one of the Spice Girls, Scary Spice.
If you can't tell, Hope likes Dancing with the
Yeah,
Stars.
she was on Dancing with the Stars. So I feel like, Kate Goslin, she was also on Dancing with the
Yay.
Stars, and she was on Special Forces. So I feel like half the cast of Special Forces did Dancing with the Stars at some point. But where we are currently at, before the finale airing, because Mike Piazza just left, legendary baseball player. So we've got Dwight Howard is left. Carly Lloyd is there. Danny Amendola, I can't say his name right. Amendola is there. Hannah Brown. Hannah Brown is the only non-athlete that is left.
Gus, and I don't remember his last name.
Gus Kinsworthy just left.
He just left because
he had an anaphylactic reaction.
To something.
I think he would have lasted had not been for that. Am I forgetting anybody, or is it just
No, it's
those?
just 4 now.
So it's
before
Dwight
there's
Howard,
four left
Carly
before
Lloyd,
going into
Danny,
the
and
final.
Hannah Brown. And who would you say has impressed you most on that? Like when we got like I have to say for me, it's the reality stars like Kenya Moore and Hannah Brown have been by far been the most impressive. I knew Hannah; she won Dancing with the Stars. I knew she was athletic, and I know they used to call her like Hannah Beast, which I thought was a joke. But and she has the advantage. She's the youngest competitor on that show. But she is really, especially to be like the only non-athlete, very impressive. I think Kenya Moore, if her knee hadn't been acting up, especially for she's a little older too for her, like she's not like old, but like older of some of the contestants that were left. So I think the reality ones. I mean, I knew the Olympians were going to be good, but those two, I would give them. They've impressed me the most. What about you?
Yeah, Hannah Brown's been impressive just because she doesn't come from any kind of athletic background
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I mean, she did dance and stuff, so
Yeah,
she's clearly coordinated.
but even just like the environment that they're in,
yeah,
when it comes to like getting screamed at, like even the athletes, they probably don't have it as intensely, but they have some familiarity with being
yeah.
yelled at.
But
and,
you
and
even
having
saw
kind
like
of
Danny
like that.
kind of sparred with the football player, with the I don't wouldn't call them coaches, like
the drill instructors.
The drill instructors a little bit. Dwight's kind of. I feel like Dwight takes it he's better. Has taken some of his.
I feel like Dwight has taken that in his professional career.
In stride, so. Yeah. Like I felt like Danny gets a little more heated, but I would say if I had to pick, like I really hope that they all make it at the end at this point. But I'd say Hannah Brown has been the most, by far the one that's impressed me the most. I was a little disappointed that Nastia Lukin went out so early, the gymnast.
Yeah.
I thought she would last a little bit longer, but I think she hadn't like. I think some of the athletes they are perfectionists, and in her case, but she had to have some extra assistance to complete one task, and she was basically like, "Well, I didn't do the task the way I was supposed to do it, so I don't deserve to be here." And
yeah,
but it's been a really cool show to watch because you are getting that reality TV element, where they're all there together. I think at this point they've banded together, but it's been interesting to see them complete the tasks. I know if I were to ever do a show like that, I think the physical part for me would be much easier than the mental part. Like I think, not that I'm like bragging on myself as some amazing athlete, but I do think, I am athletic and I could do some of those things, even the stuff that would scare me. But the mental part, getting screamed at would not jive well with me.
Yeah, but I mean, plus like you have just your athletic background gives you the ability to push through pain in a way that people who've never pushed their bodies like that before are able to. But the mental part of being screamed at the whole time, the physical activity itself, but you're
not getting a lot of good food.
But
in
some of the situations they're putting you in where the physical activity is secondary to the mental aspect of like, if you were that rope thing that they were walking across, okay, if that was 5 feet off the ground, almost everybody could be passing that, but it's 100 feet off the ground. And so even there's no difference between except what you're used to, except for, the fact that it's if you're afraid of heights, it's going to be more of a mental strain on you.
And then you've got somebody screaming at you the whole time, like the people shouting.
Yes, exactly.
I think Mike Piazza lasted pretty long. But when he finally decided to bow out, it was because he's also played team sports, and he knew at that point because basically if one of them screws up, they all get kind of like punished and have to do like extra burpees or roll around in the sand and lift big heavy bags of concrete, all crazy stuff. And he kind of was like, okay, well, my performance at this point is impacting the team.
Yeah.
But I would recommend, I know we're talking a lot about it, maybe we can do like a full wrap after we watch the finale, but I would recommend that show.
It's definitely a nice break from the reality TV that you usually
it's not like
watching.
Bachelor or like Love is Blind. It's pretty much, if anybody ever watched, I know we talked a couple podcasts ago that I gotten back into watching like old episodes of The Challenge. It's kind of like that, like extreme stunts, except for this is more like, special ops, military kind of based.
So I haven't really watched much on my own other than what I've been watching with you, but I am getting ready to jump back in. I watched, like 2 months ago, I watched the first episode of Rings of Power, which is the Lord of the Rings TV show. And I meant to keep watching it, and then just like holiday season and everything collapsed down around me. So I do intend to get back to that, and I'll probably talk about it here. I'm really outing myself as a Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings
a Star Trek reference again.
Fan in many ways. So I'm sorry for everybody that I am a huge
I've
nerd.
heard though that like hardcore like Tolkien fans hate this.
You need to understand, hardcore Tolkien fans hated the Lord of the Rings movies.
I have
Not
seen
the Hobbit
a lot
movies.
of complaints.
Everybody hated the Hobbit movies. I'm talking about the Lord of the Rings movies, the beloved Lord of the Rings movies. The hardcore fans hated
just saying,
those.
I've seen a lot more complaints about the Amazon series.
So I'm not going to defend it, but I will give a little bit of explanation about the story of it. So Amazon only has the rights to the Lord of the Rings trilogy and anything contained within them. But the story of Rings of Power is like 2,000 years before that.
So is this something they made up, or
So
did they get it
there
from the source
are
material?
appendices to the original Lord of the Rings books that have a little bit of history of things that took place before those stories. There's also a whole other book series about that, but Amazon doesn't have the rights to that. So they're basically taking the very small timeline elements that are in the original Lord of the Rings and making up their own stuff to go inside it.
I wish they would just do a show.
I'm coming at it from the standpoint of they're making it up and it's a fantasy show. Yes, it's called The Lord of the Rings, but I mean,
but
I
wouldn't
like
you rather? This is what I would rather than when I said a show. I know this is a show. What I mean by that is I would rather them do like a Game of Thrones approach, and unlike Game of Thrones, where they didn't have the books finished and they had to go wildly off topic. That's a whole other podcast someday about our thoughts about how Game of Thrones ended. They have the source material complete. Lord of the Rings. I feel like at this point in time, the way movie studios, break up movies, we would have had 6 movies instead of 3 for Lord of the Rings, because there was absolutely no reason that we had 3 Hobbit movies. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, if the movie studio knew.
But I think Lord of the Rings could translate very well to a television show. And I've said the same thing about people are like, "Oh, how would you feel about Harry Potter?" Go for it. I would love it if they did a Harry Potter TV series. I think your risk that you take with Harry Potter as opposed to Lord of the Rings in a series is, are you going to stick with the same child actors? Or are you going to do something like what The Crown does and switch up your cast?
Yeah, because that's risky with the child actors.
Which you really wouldn't need to do much for Lord of the Rings per se.
Yeah. If
you did a series on that. That's what I think they should just do that. And at this point you'd be like, oh, well, the movies just came out. But, I mean, when did Return of the King came out in 2003? So, guys, that's 20 years at this point. So we've established we're old. Yeah.
So they are making a season 2 of Rings of Power, so I'm going to catch up on the first season and see how that goes and talk about it here, just to satisfy my own nerd.
We haven't been watching a lot of new stuff quite yet in the time, but we know once I get back from my trip at the time that this podcast drops, we're going to be in the thick of it. We're going to have more Picard, Season 3. We're going to have The Mandalorian
on March
Season
1st.
3 on March 1st. We're going to have, there was one other.
Ted Lasso on the 15th.
Ted Lasso on March 15th.
At some point in
I'll probably breeze through the Outer Banks when I get back.
Yeah, because all of those are weekly
that.
drops. At some point in March, we will be watching Picard, Mandalorian, and Ted Lasso all at the same time.
Yes.
And then, like you said, your Outer Banks show. But that'll all drop at once, right?
Yes, because it's on Netflix.
So we're going to have a lot coming up. I know, and I have been pleading and begging, and I think we are going to get around to watching The Last of Us here at some point, which it's still going, so it's not like we're that far behind on that one anyways.
Maybe when I'm in the mood to feel really sad about something.
Sure, absolutely.
Still been watching a little Modern Family for my comfort show. I always have one comfort show I watch throughout the week, and then, of course, The Bachelor.
So we did watch a show on Netflix before we started the podcast, Wednesday, which is an adaptation of The Addams Family, but focusing primarily on the character Wednesday.
And we realized we watched it later. Then I think it came out around Thanksgiving. I don't know why they didn't put this out around Halloween. I guess because there was Pilgrims or something in the town they were in. That time slot for me, once I get into the Thanksgiving kind of time period, I'm all about my Hallmark Christmas movies. That'll be coming at you in the
well, you're watching your Christmas and Thanksgiving TV episodes during that time of year.
Yeah, and I watch a lot of Christmas themed and Thanksgiving themed episodes during that time of year. And that's just my annual time of year that I seem to get sick every year too. So it was quite a doozy this year. So we put Wednesday off. Everybody kept telling me, you need to watch Wednesday. This show is a show that you will like, basically to me specifically. I figured Daniel would like it. The best way I can describe Wednesday is it's like Harry Potter meets Sabrina, the Netflix version of Sabrina, meets Legacies, which was the spinoff of the Vampire Diaries in the original show. Kind of like a school, like, because the whole like magic school, like boarding school vibe. So we've never really seen Wednesday at quite this late in her teen years before. She was younger
Yeah.
in the movies.
Because in the movies she was younger than this, and I think I never really watched the TV show.
Me neither.
But
My
I think
Wednesday
she was
is
even younger
Christina
in the TV
Ricci.
show. Yeah.
Like Christina, who is also actually cast in this Wednesday series. So you get to see her. She's obviously not Wednesday, but she is a character. Pretty prominent character.
Yeah, she's in every
Turns
episode,
out.
I think.
Yeah. So she's kind of who we grew up with as like 90s kids.
Surprised me because when I first heard she was going to be in it, I kind of thought she was just going to cameo in it. But she was like a very prominent main character.
Yes, absolutely. You also didn't realize, though, that that was Catherine Zeta-Jones.
No, I didn't at all.
And I'm sitting there arguing with him. I'm like, no, that is Catherine Zeta-Jones. That is who Morticia is. And he's like, no, it's not. She wouldn't do that. How old is she? So then that was a whole thing where we had to look up and find out how old she was. And two, confirmed that it was her.
I think I generally liked the casting of all of the like Addams Family characters that were known from other places. I can see... I guarantee there's probably people on the internet that did not like the casting of Gomez.
I thought it worked.
I don't know that actor's name, but I thought it worked really well. I thought Fred Armisen as Fester was really good.
That is Luis Guzman. I don't think
he's been in a ton of stuff.
He's been
but
in so many things.
He's one of those actors that I see. And
but you know what I remember him most from? I remember him most from a bit episode on Frasier.
Oh God!
Where it's the one where where Frasier Frasier and Niles were leaving the mall and they go into the parking garage and had to turn right around and he's like, that'll be $4 and Frasier like refuses to pay the $4 and every time I see it, he's done so many more things other than a one-off kind of Frasier episode, but that's always what I think about. The hand Thane. Okay, I was like, what is that? I really liked how they fit Thane in there.
I enjoyed how Thane was not CGI.
Yeah, it was
good. Was an actual actor, and then just the rest of the actor would have been so it was kind of CGI because they removed the actor in the green suit that he would have been wearing, but in general, the hand itself that you're seeing is being played by a person, and I thought that really played off well in the show. And whoever did it, I don't know who it was, brought character to that hand. You know, a
Victor
voiceless, faceless
Bantu
character.
He's
really
an actor, hand actor, and creature performer, according to IMDb.
This hand is your hand. This hand is my hand.
Joey's hand twin. Hey there for our friends. References. He's actually a magician. He started his career as a magician.
Oh.
I liked the addition of some of the other like cast, like Gwendolyn Christie, also known from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, she was very good.
She was like the headmaster, and then am I saying it? Enid,
yes.
Wednesday's roommate. I really liked her. I thought she was a great character, and I liked seeing Wednesday. Couldn't help but like Enid at the end.
In her own Wednesday way.
In her very own Wednesday way, and I feel like people are always like, well, who do you ship Wednesday with? Well, I like the friendship of those two the best. I would just like to say that I totally called, I think, day one, who like the monster was. I guess that one.
You did, yes, you did.
Which apparently, according to Reddit, a lot of people got that, and I think it's because, again, this is a spoiler podcast, so if you haven't watched Wednesday yet, go ahead and turn this off. But like her little human boyfriend, well, we thought he was human. Ooh, that was the cop's son. And I think people got really caught up in probably the shipping, probably the younger viewers that were watching Wednesday. And the whole time I was like, I don't trust this guy. And I was like, that would be like a aha twist. And I can tell you right now, I knew Christina Ricci's character was up to no good. She was trying to be like a squeaky clean, like normie. And I'm like, they wouldn't bring Christina on. I know she has the connection. She's who a lot of people our age remember as Wednesday. But I'm like, she's got to be a villain, right?
Well, they did a little misdirect too. They tried to pin it on multiple different people.
Yeah, like the therapist.
And also, at the beginning, you didn't know that there were basically two villains.
Yeah.
And so you didn't really so you were trying to figure out who would won, and then ultimately ended up being two. Although I would argue that maybe Christina Ricci's character was probably more the actual villain.
Oh
and
yeah,
she was taking
'cause
advantage of.
she was controlling.
Yeah.
What was his name? I got it pulled up. Tyler.
Yeah.
She was kind of controlling Tyler, and then Tyler and his dad, who was the sheriff, they just kind of got the heck out of there. But we got flashbacks with like young Morticia, young Gomez.
I'd watch that show.
Me too. I was ready to say. I'm like, I would totally take a prequel show.
Especially if Fester is there as well. I would watch that young show with them being young in the school, Fester being around. I'm assuming Thing. We don't know anything about Thing.
Fester got kicked out though, right? He didn't always get to go. Did they address that?
Well, but that would be great because he gets kicked out, but he keeps showing up because
I can't recall if that was 100%, but I think something was mentioned.
Anyways,
that was the one we finally saw.
Pitching a prequel show.
We finally saw Wednesday smile, like when
Fester
shows up, a genuine smile. I don't know, the whole thing. The reason why I totally called it Tyler, he was just always showing up. We needed to be just. It was. I tend to. That's what I do when I watch shows. I'm like, okay, so it's not going to be super obvious. They're going to go for the shock value, but I think there's a chance he could come back, and I think there's even a chance that he could be like redeemed. I read an article with Jenna Ortega, who did a fantastic job playing Wednesday. By the way,
yeah,
absolutely great job. I was first from. I think she's done like maybe Disney before this, but I was familiar with her because she was in one of the. And she's actually coming back for the new one of the most recent Scream movies. I think we're on Scream 5 at this point, and Scream 6 I think is coming out, and she's coming back for that because her character didn't die in the first one. Good for her. So I kind of was familiar with her as an actress. Huh?
They'll get her next time.
Maybe. And then she showed up as Wednesday, and I thought she did a great job. But anyway, the article that I read about her, she was saying how from her perspective, which obviously she's not a writer from the show, she was like, I was kind of playing it as like Wednesday was like impressed with Tyler, that he was able to get away with it, like cover that up, almost like a jealousy thing. And I think it would be cool if they did lean into that, because Wednesday is kind of more of like an anti-hero. You know, like, yeah, she's working with the good guys, but like that would be to keep it kind of in that lore. Like I really liked Jenna Ortega's take on that. I don't know if that's what the writers will do. I think the door is definitely open for him to come back, even like mid-season or something.
Oh, he'll be back for sure. There's no question in my mind. There's too much of a loose end.
We know we're getting a season 2. It's going to be on Netflix. Just no one knows how long it'll take. And this is where an example where I can say like TikTok like kind of altered my view of something, because I had just seen the Wednesday dance from TikTok with the song that TikTok used for it. So when it was on the show, I was like, okay, so are they gonna like do the dance at the end credits or something? And Daniel's like, no, that's it. But then if you notice, Netflix then returned the favor and leaned into it, because when they announced season 2, they made like Wednesday joke about her dance going viral, and then they put that music in.
What are the chances that song does actually end up in season 2?
I think, and I think season 2, there's some possibilities for some other character plot lines. Like what was her? The girl that was, she's not a mermaid. What is, like a siren? Is that what they are?
Yeah. She's got
Bianca.
Yeah, they've got things they can explore with her.
Absolutely.
I think Enid's they'll have some stuff to explore.
I need more from Eugene, because he was precious.
Yeah. He was good.
And then Enid, of course, because Enid finally she's the little werewolf, right?
Yes. And
she finally, like, her werewolf, like, powers, I guess, kicked in. And then do you think they'll age Pugsley up enough and have him go to the school at some point?
I don't know. It was a good start to a weird little show.
Yeah. A great show.
We'll see where it goes from there. And then, is that all you had on Wednesday?
That's pretty much all I've got on Wednesday.
The other thing we watched, and this was early in January, was Emily in Paris season 3.
Season 3.
Now, did that come out? That came out in the fall, or was that
came
later?
out like right around Christmas. Okay. So again, I don't know why. I guess because Netflix assumes a lot of people are at home. Well, you know, we're always busy on the holidays, and again, like I got my Hallmark movies, y'all. But you liked the Hallmark movies. Some of the Hallmark movies this year. 3 Wise Men and a Baby was great. Give that one an Oscar.
That one was tolerable.
We liked Christmas at the Golden Dragon, the one about like that was like
kind
of a Love Actually version.
I did enjoy that one.
Did you? What about the one that was the ghosts of like Christmas Present?
With Carl Winslow.
Yeah, with Carl Winslow.
I mean, The time traveler one from a couple years ago is still my absolute favorite one, just because of how silly it was.
They've done like 3 times. Are you talking about the one where she like worked at the museum
Yes.
of the guy's house? I think that was from 2019, maybe.
You can tell how much of an impression Emily in Paris season 3 made on us, considering the tangent that we just went off of.
Anyway, Emily in Paris season 3. Emily in Paris is a show I started watching last year. I sat down and started watching the first episode. Daniel came upstairs and was like, "Oh, this show's pretty funny." I'm like, "Oh, I never expected him to watch Emily in Paris with me." Because it's, kind of like a girly. I feel like it's marketed as a girly show, but it's funny, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's funny. The same way, which oddly enough, Darren Star, the guy that did Sex in the City, is also the guy that's I don't know if he produces. He's involved.
You're not selling the men when you bring up.
I'm just saying. No, I'm saying this the way you said. You were like, "Wow, Sex in the City," it's kind of funny, and you watched that. It was sort of the same way with Emily in Paris, which Emily in Paris is what, like half-hour episodes each.
Yeah,
so it's short. It's like a drama. Like, yeah, there's drama in it, but it's comedy, dramedy. And so he just started watching with me, enjoyed it enough. So we watched the first 2 seasons back to back.
Yep.
And then we watched season 3. I'm going to say season 3 is the weakest of the seasons.
I agree with that.
And I think what they did with season 3 on Emily in Paris was probably a response to fans being like, I want to know more about Mindy, who I like Mindy, her roommate and friend. But the show was called Emily in Paris. And I felt like Emily not being, like, she was still like the main character, but I felt like some of the focus not being quite on her, it kind of made this season all over the place.
It suffered from the same problem that the last season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel did. The main character, whose the show is named after, is spinning their wheels.
Yeah.
And not doing a whole lot.
And we get it. You want to feature the other characters a little bit.
And so they focus on a lot of other people. And even in this case, they focused on non-main characters, which is fine. But the problem, in my opinion at least, they focused on the wrong side characters.
Yeah.
Because, Mindy's fine.
You barely forget that, like, her coworker and everything.
Luke and the other guy, they get some storylines, like, in the last episode
just
or
shoved
two,
into the last episode.
Shoved in, and like, I really enjoyed everything those guys were doing. I think they're good actors, and I like when they're on screen, I'm enjoying the show.
And part of their arc at the end of season 3 is definitely going to come into play for season 4. But it was almost like they got pushed to the back burner. It's the way, when you want to focus on secondary characters, it's the way you balance it. And I felt like, especially, with, like I said, these are shorter episodes, it was kind of hard for them to do. That being said,
I also don't like Alfie.
Did like... Oh, you're going to start. I was ready to say I did like the more attention on Sylvie, her Parisian boss.
She's one of the side characters that I like attention on.
So you don't let's circle back. Okay, so Emily's, I feel like all the men just love Emily.
I don't like any of the men that she has options for.
So you're not a Gabriel fan either?
No.
But why don't you like Alfie?
He's a bro. He's a British bro.
A lot of people really like Alfie and would want to fight you. Now, I thought I didn't like Alfie as much in season 2, but he kind of grew on me a little bit in season 3, and he was really cute and sweet with her. But the reason why I can't get on board with that romance is because Emily was so obviously not over Gabriel.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's one, but I don't know. Just something about
and then we've got
the character Alfie just does. I don't like him.
So which one would you be friends with then of all the guys?
Luke.
Luke. Not one of Emily's boyfriends. That being said, Mindy's current boyfriend is awful. She needs to go back with her bandmate guy. I hate, was it Nicholas? But we kept going Nicholas.
And that was just such a abrupt
well, because he's a foil. They had to have him as the foil to Emily because he and Emily weren't getting along with their company thing. But what I liked what they did about that is that you thought that it was going to cause a huge rift between Mindy and Emily, and it didn't. Like we thought, there was a little bit of a squabble.
Nice. It was nice that was how that went down, instead of just doing the stereotypical, the two women are fighting about men things.
I mean, now Gabriel was ready to go ahead and marry. Do we think, so spoiler alert, again, spoiler-free show, Camille was Gabriel's girlfriend prior, like when he met Emily, then she's hooking up with some woman like during this season because they since got back together. The whole thing's a mess.
Which, by the way, she was from episode 1, season 1 5 minutes in, you always called Cammy going for women.
I did. I thought that Camille liked Emily, and I thought that she was into Emily. So I was like, oh, yeah. So I totally called that. And I still think Camille kind of had a crush on Emily at first. I do. I really do. So that does not surprise me that she's cheating on Gabriel. They're back together. He and Emily did not cheat this season.
No,
at all.
not at all.
Obviously, they still have feelings, but they kind of pushed and buried them down. But then Camille says she's pregnant. Do we think she's really pregnant?
I do not know.
I don't think she's pregnant. But that being said, that'd be one heck of a lie to keep up. Like, she would either have to, like, if they did go through with the wedding, like, she would have to really try to get pregnant right away, or she'd have to, like, make up a thing, like, that she lost the baby, which would be even crueler.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to go with
that. So I
that.
wish I felt like Camille was such a great character in the first season, and then they kind of, like, you could tell her mom got in her head, made her a bit of a villain. And then I felt like she was coming off that villainous arc, even though she was cheating on Gabriel. But I was like, oh, she's really coming into her own. She's going to break up with him, you know, because she's into this other person. But instead, she wasn't brave enough just to admit that she was wrong. She has to, like, drag Emily into it, and the whole thing's just a fiasco again. And it's just, she's a frustrating character to me. But anyway, that's a little bit, we could always talk about Emily in Paris later, maybe as we queue up for, I know they are on a season 4, so I think they filmed 3 and 4 at the same time.
Yeah, so we'll probably get that about the same time we got season 3 last year.
Yeah, I think that's the time slot they usually try to do those in. But
so that's it for this episode. Like I said, we're kind of recording early because Hope's going to be out of town here this coming week. But next episode, you can look definitely forward to more impressions on Picard. We're getting ready for Mandalorian. We're excited. Probably start The Last of Us, and then I know you're all very excited to hear me drone and ramble about the Lord of the Rings. I mean, who wouldn't? So
yeah, it's some good. We
If
could do Outer Banks / Lord of the Rings episode.
There you go. Since I'm not watching Outer Banks and you're not watching Lord of the Rings, we can both rant about those in our own ways.
We can interview each other, maybe.
Real quick, if you guys like the podcast, have listened this far through, and want to hear more for us, please follow us on Twitter or Instagram, and give the podcast a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Those metrics help get more people to see that we are making a podcast.
And let us know if there's a show you want us to talk about. I know one of the big shows that did just recently come out on Netflix was You. We have not seen that show. This is I think it's season 3 or 4.
Is that the show with Dan from Gossip
Yeah,
Girl?
with Dan.
See, I know
Good job,
things.
honey. Dan from Gossip Girl. See, I think that's the perfect note to end it on.
All right.
You know you love me. XOXO.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope on Twitter @LilRunner or on Instagram @LilRunner1485. And Daniel is on Twitter @TheRealHoboDan. Drop us a line if you like the show or have a question you'd like us to address on a future show. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.